Good evening, my friends. My name is Mad Matt Wancow, and this is Dapper D&D. Today, I want to talk a little bit about magical items. Magic makes up a large part of Dungeons & Dragons. We have our characters who can do impossible things, the monsters that we fight, which can do even more ridiculous things and are monstrosities unto themselves, and little items, magical potions, rings that make us invisible, cloaks that allow us to fly, things like that can just make us do amazing things above and beyond what our characters could do by themselves. In 4th edition, magical items were everywhere, and they had a set price. And there was also this escalating war of a +1 sword, +1 armor, +2 sword, +2 armor, and it just kept going up and up and up. In 5th edition, what I'm going to be running, they got rid of that. They got rid of a lot of that. Magical items are now as common as the DM feels that they should be in the world, and they're encouraged to not be common at all. If you go to the D&D Next playtest packet, you will notice that under the magical items, instead of listing a price, it has a range dependent on rarity. What this means for my game, however, is I can't just say, you have gold equal to a level 12 item, go and buy stuff. Because there aren't any level 12 items, and even if there were, there wouldn't be a standard gold number that you could buy. And that means that we have to be a lot more flexible. I, for one, love this system. This is a great system, and I feel that magical items are going to be amazing again, like they were in earlier editions of D&D, instead of very passé like they were in 4th. In 4th edition, everybody had magical items. You needed to have a full accoutrement of magical items, otherwise you couldn't fight people of your level. And so, for my next campaign, I need to discuss a little bit about what type of magical items that I'm looking for. It's difficult with magical items. You can easily say in a 4th edition campaign or 5th edition campaign, no magical items allowed. You don't start with any. However, there's a character that we're going to be starting with in our group, named Tanith Blackburn. From where his character is standing now, he will eventually have an airship called the Gantra Thor. He is a champion of Tempest, and my monocle keeps trying to slide out and creep onto my face. There we go. Tanith has a lot of lore about him, and this lore does involve some magical items. He has this Moran's Eye, which allows him to see some magic-y type stuff. He's got an extremely awesome set of armor that I made even more amazing in 5th edition, and just a couple of other things that he might want to be kept quiet. You're not getting the Amulet of Ultimate Evil. That came after you had an airship. Just making sure you know. And so, right now, I'm set up to have an extreme imbalance in the party. One character will have a lot of magical items that makes him fairly powerful. I can still beat him in combat because I know what these magical items do. However, the other characters are going to be limited because they don't have that lore built around their character. I love character lore. I think that's a large part of why we play D&D, to build the lore of our characters. And I will definitely try and talk about that more some other time. However, there's 5 other players in the campaign now. I think I'm running for 6 people now, or either it was 4 and... No, it's 6 people now. And only one of them has told me, well, 2 of them have shown me their character sheets, essentially, and only one really has magical items. But I need to be able to have you guys have magical items, because, 1, they're really cool, and that it makes your characters really cool. 2, it allows the playing field to be a little bit more balanced when you're up with somebody like Tanith. And 3, I think that it makes characters special. I think that it's very, very important to have a character who, Harry Potter really wouldn't be as much of a hero if he didn't have his invisibility cloak and his magic wand. You wouldn't have ever heard of Frodo if he didn't have his ring of invisibility. I doubt anyone's heard of Belgarion anyway, so that's a bad example. Thomas Covenant is also coming to mind, but nobody knows what that is either. I feel a little bit old right now. The Doctor from Doctor Who. Okay, yeah, he's occasionally not used them before, but he would be a lot different if he didn't have a sonic screwdriver or a psychic paper or his TARDIS. There's a lot of these magical items that are really, really ingrained into the character, and they become an extension of the character themselves. So, let's move on and talk a little bit more about specific magical items and the classifications of magical items. I've been trying to quantify in my head what magical items are this last week, and I'm not really coming up with much of a good solid answer. I do know that there are some magical items that I shall refer to as artifacts, and these are things like Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. Mjolnir has a lot of magical properties. It can turn into a stick and disguise its user. It can summon lightning. It can be thrown and returned to your hand. You can fly with it. You can summon the Bifrost Bridge and travel to another dimension. It can't be picked up except by you. There's a lot of things. I counted 7 things off right there. There's a lot of things all pulled into one really, really awesome magic item. And characters can get artifacts, but I'm not going to hand an artifact to a character when I haven't met the character at all. And so artifacts are right out, and I don't necessarily know exactly what I would consider an artifact. Something that has a lot of, what do you call it? A lot of abilities could be one thing. And also, something that there's only one of is probably an artifact as things go. But things that I would definitely allow people to have, one of the best things in 5th edition is the concept of advantage and disadvantage, where instead of giving a numerical bonus, you get to roll twice. And if you have advantage, pick the best. If you have disadvantage, pick the worst. And it's really, really cool because it's a lot more flexible, and it allows you to get rid of rolling nasty 1s or those nasty nat 20s. And when you fail anyway when you have advantage, it's epic. And when you succeed anyway when you have disadvantage, it's also epic. And I think that adds a lot to this story, and I really plan to pull it up and bring it up and make it a much better thing. And so, in 5th edition, I still am not entirely pleased with it, but there are a list of skills. And one of the type of magical items that I'm totally fine with people having are things that give you advantage on skills. For example, one of those elven cloaks from Lord of the Rings, where they were able to entirely hide and appear as a rock. That essentially, if you look at it in the rules, could then being given a advantage on their stealth check, their sneak check. And that would be the type of thing that I would love for people to have, to give them advantage on climbing, to give advantage on, I don't know what else. There's a bunch of different stuff. Maybe advantage on lying, on your bluff check, on your sense insight. Maybe, definitely, talk to the DM and say, hey, this is what I want, and this is what it does when I reroll. And maybe as a mage, you have yourself like a little imp that sits on your shoulder that allows you to reroll knowledge arcana checks, because if you mess up, he's there on your shoulder and he's like, psst, boss, you should, don't you remember from this scroll, the Crimson Bands of Sidorak have this special property. And you have, a little assistant sitting on your shoulder. A magical item doesn't have to be a ring. It can be pretty much anything. So that's it for advantage and disadvantage. And then there's, properties that are just, naturally there. Imbued. Magical items that imbue you with magical properties. For example, maybe you have a choker, I guess they're called, that allows you to breathe underwater. And so when we go up to a large water-based thing and you fall in the water and you get pulled under, you don't have to worry about drowning because you've got this thing that keeps you from drowning. Maybe that's something that your character does. Or maybe you're immune to fall damage. Maybe you're immune to fire because of this thing. As far as things like that go, I would prefer, instead of just a straight up, you are immune to fire. That's a pretty powerful thing. But if it's I don't know, you are immune to fire until you get wet, that could be, kind of a random thing. I don't know. Some conditions where I, as a DM, can make interesting events happen. That's one of the reasons, in a superhero RPG, you end up getting weaknesses, because that gives the DM something to do. Superman is great, he's able to do all of these things, he's immune to everything, but he does have a list of weaknesses that lets the story writers make it so he's not going to win right now until he does something different. As for magical weapons, I'm not necessarily comfortable with just giving out, here's a +2 weapon, because those are supposed to be extremely rare in 5th edition, for one thing, because of its non-scaling AC, And also, that's kind of bland. There is, in the book, it mentions it has a dragon-slaying arrow, and I love the flavor text on that. I love the dragon-slaying arrow. And that type of thing. If you have an archer character, maybe in your quiver you've got an arrow of elemental slaying, an arrow of dragon slaying, and you've just picked up this magical ammunition as your rewards when you've beaten things before, and you just have a text message. No, you just have a arsenal of things. And hey, if you want to do a Hawkeye or a Green Arrow type thing, I'm totally willing to work with you. You want an arrow that fires a net? We can make something up. If you want to have a grenade arrow, talk to me. I'm very, very flexible. I realize that my job as a DM is to make your characters awesome. And if your DM doesn't do that, you should talk to him and see why he doesn't believe that. But my job as a DM is to make sure the party has as much fun as I can arrange. And your job as a player is to make sure the party has as much fun as you can arrange. And sometimes, for some people, that means that your numbers are just going to win, and you're just going to win this combat, and it doesn't matter. You can slog your way through it, and you'll get to the end. And you're just able to, number-wise, just win everything. And that's fine if that's how you want to play, but that's not how I want to play. I want to play by having memorable stories. Stories where people will look back at this campaign and be like, do you remember the time when the guy jumped off the building, hit the ground, bounced, and landed on the next building? That was awesome. I don't know if that's going to happen. You know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But please, 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 tell me what you guys think your characters will want to do for magical items. And hey, everybody out there who's not going to be directly in my game, I don't know, there's comments down below. List awesome magical items that you think that people would totally want to have. Or perhaps, tell me your thoughts about magical items. And as always, if you guys want me to talk about anything here on Dapper D&D, let me know down below. My name is Matt Wankow. This has been Dapper D&D. You guys stay online, and I'll see you next time.